right, we're going live about 10-15 minutes early, um, but that's all right. We've got an interesting topic for today. The broadcast title is called Drones. Um, One of the things that we all need to consider is how technology, not only affects our daily lives in a commercial aspect or regard, but from the perspective of how technology will be used against us in any certain situation. Um, we constantly see, the further advancements of militarization of our police, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's um, for the wrong purpose. It could be a terrible thing. Um, our military is in effect a cohesive set of units that all work in conjunction with each other to accomplish a mission. Our police force is independent jurisdictions. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they work apart, but um, overall, they have their set jurisdiction. All these groups or small units of these departments, and you militarize them and give them military technology, train them in military tactics and techniques and procedures. Um, you then make them more powerful, and that's not necessarily a good thing. You don't necessarily want your policing body to be any more powerful than your civic body. Um, Reason being is if the policing body gets out of hand or out of line, which we have seen instances in the past where they have, then they become an overwhelming force that dominates the battle space, and civilians are caught up in it and are overwhelmed, and essentially their rights go out the window. We've seen this in Waco. We've seen this in Washington. Um, we've seen this in the Bundy Ranch situation. Um, there's many examples of uh, the abuse of power that the police have. I'm not saying now. Let me clarify something before I continue. Um, I have the utmost respect for our police officers, especially the street cop, because 99% of the time they've got the population's best interest in mind. They're not out to just ruin lives or screw people over or shoot at anything that moves. Now, sometimes those things happen, but remember, we're not that far off of, it's only been a little more than 100 years since, you it was commonplace for two people to have a gunfight in the middle of the street. and that was considered legal. You know, everybody forgets about the Wild West. Well, that's why they call it wild. So imagine, if this all goes up in smoke, it's not going to be much different. It'll be like the Wild West again. But the topic for today is drones. And give me 1 second. So the topic today is drones. And it's interesting because I've used drones, small ones, Ravens, for kind of over the horizon surveillance. Um, they're effective. They're lightweight. They're easy to use and transport. Um, but that was, going on 10 years ago or more. So, and now we've got, commercial drones that are, more advanced than that. Um, but what really piqued my interest in doing this broadcast today was an article I came across on Drudge Report, and it's entitled "Revealed the Military-Grade Tech Police Use to Defeat Gatwick Drone Culprits." Now, uh, just the title alone says we're at kind of a new level, so to speak, where they're making it public that, one, they're providing counter surveillance, counter drone technology to the police, and two, that technology exists to the point where they can then hand the leftovers, because that's what they do. That's what the um, military does. Is it gives the police the leftovers. It doesn't give them the brand new stuff. Okay, the brand new stuff is being used on a battlefield somewhere, and you don't even hear about it, know about it, understand it. Some of it you can't even comprehend at the time, um, because some of it's absolutely unreal. Uh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this article, and it's an interesting article. It's even got a timeline of events, but there's something interesting about the timeline that I noticed. So I'll start by reading this article. Police used military-grade equipment to defeat and find those responsible for the drone incursion which sparked 3 days of chaos at Gatwick Airport. As it was revealed that a man and a woman were finally arrested on Friday night for criminal use of drones. Criminal use of drones. That's key. The Telegraph has been able to identify the high-tech systems used by the authorities to ground the device and ultimately track those responsible. So they were able to take control of these devices, these drones, land them, and then track the location of their users. Just think about that for a second. That's uh that's pretty serious. So like, I mean, don't get me wrong, drones are cool and all, but there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, well, the police have drones, I got to have a drone. And that way I can do my own surveillance. I can do, you know, I can have that isometric or third person perspective of my surroundings, that extra situational awareness. What's the interesting thing about it is that it's not going to do you any good. So don't go out there spending hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars on drones when, especially commercial drones, because again, the snowball rolls downhill, right? The military's got the good stuff up top, the police got the middle, grade stuff, the leftovers, and then the civilian market's got the crap that gets spun out from whatever the military or the government decides to be commercialized, you know, decides to allow for there to be a patent for. Um, Let me finish some of this article. Developed by the private sector but commercially available, okay. One well-placed source suggested the systems would cost between 10 million and 20 million pounds to buy, along with large additional running costs to provide around-the-clock counter-drone protection. Using the above-tabbed image as a guide, we look at the system employed to thwart the drone culprits. Okay. Um, and there's this photograph of 3 different devices. These 3 devices are, one is a drone detection device, the second is a drone tracker, the third is a drone jamming device. Now, I'm not. You can read the article yourself. You can go on Drudge Report and find it. Um, it's a Yahoo News article. Um, I guess off the Telegraph, dated today. But drone detection device, pretty obvious. You know, or pretty self-explanatory. I mean, um, the tracking device, again, pretty self-explanatory. Jamming device, however, um, jamming device is interesting. Uh, it says here that jamming technology disrupts the radio frequencies being used by the controller to direct the drone. Experts describe it as like using a huge blast of targeted noise to block the signal between the controller and the drone. What they don't tell you is that what they don't describe to you is that when they jam the signal to the drone, they're able to trace the signal that's being jammed back to the operator. So let's say you're using a drone for surveillance in an SHTF situation and you're wanting to see what's over the next hill or whatever the case may be. You're out hunting and you're using it as a tool to do that. Um, you're going to be giving away your position. Now it sounds kind of counterintuitive, like the drone is separate from the individual. That's what's great about drones is they're you know they can be located someplace else, giving you eyes on target while you're behind cover or in concealment away from the target area. Uh, so if you're going to use drones, understand the risk that your drone may be tracked, and then when your drone is tracked, it can be jammed and targeted back to you. So it may give away your position. I found that article really interesting. Now, I've personally known about systems like this for a long time, um, but this is the first one that I've seen made public. Uh, you know, there's all kinds of electronic countermeasures and jamming and anti-jam counter jamming systems and stuff like that, um, that drones use. You know, some of them come from satellite directly to the drone itself while it's in flight. Some are onboard systems. Um, it all depends on the drone. Some have many military drones have redundancies in place where if one system fails or if a certain signal is intercepted by the drone, it then sends a signal back or um, scrambles the signal so that it goes undetected or no longer affects the components and systems on board the drone itself. Um, but there is something a little scary about the police having this kind of technology. Now, if the police had commercial drones, I'd be like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's great. But the police using military grade drones, military grade drone tracking and jamming technology, um, that's a little scary. That really gives them an edge if they were to ever, if there was like a civil unrest situation or something like that, and it's the people versus the police, and there's just a scatter of chaos everywhere, and the next thing you know, you see a dozen drones flying around tracking people down. Um, you know, now to get into the real scary stuff about drones, uh, imagine 150 micro drones in a swarm, all talking to each other at the same time, and they're able to create an EMP field, or they're able to track multiple targets at the same time for a larger drone. Um, so like the the possibilities are for when it comes to drone technology are almost limitless. Um, we're not far from the day of seeing swarms of drones, and you might be able to take out 30 of them, but if there's 150, 200 of them flying around and they've all got autonomy as well as collective uh, computing capability, um, you're not going to be able to stop them all. They're going to be overwhelming. So, like, everybody talks about, oh, the Predator drone or something like that. That's a scary drone. Like, yeah, that is, but and it's effective. But the drones that you can use in, the smaller drones that you can use in an urban environment are potentially far deadlier. I mean, you could have one stuck to a wall somewhere, and a whole day will go by and nobody will notice it. The whole time it's sitting there conducting surveillance, tracking everybody's movement, identifying faces, looking for potential targets or gathering intelligence on potential targets. And here's the thing about it. When you have drones like that, you don't have to commit manpower to do the same job. And so what if you lose a few here or there? You didn't lose a life. So there's some advantages to it, obviously. Yeah, drones are interesting. I'd like to get some feedback from anybody that gets on this video, watches this video or whatever, views it. Uh, maybe tell me some of their experiences with drones. Now I know there's a lot of really cool commercial stuff out there, everything from drone racing to 4K photography and stuff like that, um, and 4K video. A lot of people do a lot of interesting things with drones, and they're a lot of fun. But I'd like to get some feedback on what some people consider are some of the applications of drone technology and counter drone technology in from the standpoint of the militarization of the police and so on and so forth, and how they can be used against the people. Because I tell you right now, like, if the police start getting more and more powerful and they end up on the wrong side of the fence, we're all going to have a bad day. Like, whether we do anything wrong or right or what it does, it's not going to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, I believe that all the police officers are going to turn on civilians inherently? No, but under the right circumstances, they might. Same thing with the military. It is possible. But it'd have to be the right circumstances. Hold on one second. I'm back. Sorry about that. Let's see. I was talking a little bit about, police and military turning on the civilians. I don't, I don't know that, I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. I think the majority of them are honorable people and believe in America. They believe in uh, our country. Um, but in the off chance that they do, I'll tell you what, if it's if it's military versus civilians, which is highly unlikely, if anything, it would be a coup within the government, and it would be the military or factions of the military versus other factions of the federal government. Um, but essentially, we'd be talking civil war, and it's happened in the past. It can happen again. Um, there are countries out there much older than us that have had many civil wars, many coups, have had many conflicts internally. Look at feudal Japan or medieval Europe for hundreds of years. They fought amongst themselves for power. But anyways, the real topic was drones. I think I pretty much covered it. Probably going to cut this episode short. If anybody catches this broadcast, I appreciate it. Um, if you like it, hit the like button. If you don't, okay. And I'll talk to you all next time. Out.